Hey guys, how's it going? I'm the Duke of Italy, your favorite lo-fi music YouTuber, and I am ecstatic to premiere this new series of my channel. This, of all series I'm doing, is, I believe, the first truly themed chart that I'm reviewing for the whole channel. Most things I've reviewed have been genre-based, and this one that we're covering here is mildly genre-based, but it covers like 4 different genres. It's a lot more of a vibe than a genre. And of course, I did cover the Drain Gang and Drain Gang adjacent chart all that time back ago, but that was still all cloud rap or people involved in Drain Gang. Because today, we are covering the Caveman Riff chart, which covers 4 different genres, maybe even 5. And we will be going into each of these in sequence due to how the chart was planned, roughly 10 or less albums at a time, albums or EPs or compilations, because this chart is rather varied like that. And we're just going to cover a bunch in a row, move to the next video, and some of these videos will have multiple genres in them, some of them won't. But I'll just basically cover it in the order that it was provided. Now, first of all, you're probably wondering, what on earth could caveman riffs even imply? And if you aren't a metal person necessarily, well, first of all, I'm not sure why exactly you're watching this video. You're about to be in for a huge disappointment because you're about to hear strictly metal for this entire series. But being caveman riffs specifically means you are playing the most slack-jawed, mouth-breathing, really dumb guitar riffs. It's really dumb, really easy to do guitar playing. And I guess, as a result, the bass playing as well. And, because this was so thematic, I started a little trend in my own personal life by listening to these while I'm working out. Not to get too much into my personal life, I do work out 3 times a week. So I burned through this chart much faster than the other charts that I'm actually working on, which I'll get to those soon. I'll actually premiere a new one next week and hopefully even a new one the week after that. But Caveman Riffs was the first thing to be finished, and wow, what a chart here. Could this chart be expanded? Absolutely. But what's really cool about it is you get into some really, really niche artists here, and you cover a lot of ground. And this first video here, you've probably seen the title. I'll show the chart probably at the end of this video, just so you can get a glimpse at what we're going to talk about, a glimpse of the genres we're going to see, and the design of the chart, and how the titles differ from my videos. The credits will basically be the dude that posted that there, although it might just be some like anonymous 4chan user. But I have to give props and credit where credit is due. This is a really interesting chart, a kind of a fun one to dive through, as it was so convenient to me. So I will provide a tiny bit of a bias. You would naturally assume, listening to extreme metal, which all these albums are, would be good during a workout. And the caveat to that would be, black metal would not be good during a workout because it's a lot more treble, a lot less heavy, guttural, like throwing punches. It's a lot less aggressive and a lot more evil and atmospheric. This chart proves that there is black metal that you can definitely throw down to. And it's kind of interesting because I can name at least one album off this chart that I really did not enjoy, and it was when I was working out, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not good metal. But really, it's more often than not the case. Like, if you have any death metal and I can't work out to it, that's not good. And I know this is true because just the other day, I started a new chart, which I will not name, with an At the Gates EP. At the Gates is a melodic death metal band. Melodic death metal is far less aggressive and super heavy as death grind or brutal death metal, which both are referenced on this here chart. And if I can work to that says something about the quality of the music at least. And if not straight instant quality through quality itself, then quality for a specific purpose. And I think if there's purpose to music, that's enough to listen, or warrant listening at least. And that's a whole lot of sort of housekeeping, but I mean, let's get into the caveman riffs, shall we? Now, if you saw the title, we're on the black metal section today. Now, this black metal section isn't just black metal, it's also war metal, which is blackened death with some grind thrown in, but it is mostly associated with tremolo riffs, black metal style atmosphere, a lot of reverb on the vocals. Death growls are like the main thing here, but it's also really, really dense sounding, really heavy, and super aggressive. And it's actually inspired two very, very modern waves of extreme metal that I'm a big fan of, and war metal is super influential. But we're not really starting with that. We're actually starting with what might have started that, with Sarcophago's INRI. Now, this is not exactly war metal per se, but to say it didn't influence war metal, I would argue with you, because this is Brazilian thrash metal, and it is so clearly anti-Judeo-Christian just due to the artwork here. And you've got a hell of a record that is adjacent to death metal. It's like very early death metal, very early black metal, definitely thrash metal. People definitely associate it with black metal a lot. It is an album that you can see influences a lot of stuff. It's associated with Celtic Frost. It is certainly heavier though, and has a little bit of punky nature to the whole thing, which is not the first time that'll happen on this chart, which is also a pretty interesting inclusion as well. But I'd be lying if I said this wasn't a hell of a record. This thing is heavy. It's brutal. It's got that really classic first wave of black metal sort of natural reverb to it, like that low fidelity of the 80s that was really interesting for the time, which is completely extinct to modern music. If you find something that sounds like that recording quality in modern times, like I'd send it to me because I'm interested. First of all, the song Nightmare on this album is one of the catchiest black metal songs ever, and this album actually rocks. It's very clearly still in that heavy metal mindset, and it definitely shows the link somewhere between like rock and roll all the way into extreme metal. It is intense, and it is great black metal to lift to. Not necessarily perfect for a lift. There are the more evil tremolo moments that black metal is known for, but in terms of a musical experience, I mean, it doesn't get much more classic than INRI. I mean, you could complain about the last track having the sample of the guy on a toilet or whatever, but like, that's the punky nature. That's the Brazilian thrash scene really showing, really flexing a little bit. And if you don't like it, I'm sure Sarcophago would be like, good, we're even more proud of it. But yeah, this is great. And up next, oh boy, Blasphemy, Fallen Angel of Doom. Now, I've covered both these past albums a little bit, but I have no complaints at all covering them again because they're both bangers, and nothing's more of a banger than the literal band that birthed war metal in its actual sense, Blasphemy. Their original demo, Blood Upon the Altar, literally spawned the genre, and then it's like their live material, which is the next stuff, and then I think Archgoat had like a single or a demo, and then Blasphemy came out with this full length. But for years, at least a few years, this is what mattered in terms of war metal. And what I find interesting is that they debuted in 1989, and this album was 1990. We didn't even get a Blaze in the Northern Sky for over a year. So second wave black metal came after war metal. So we have a blend of black metal before black metal was known for what it was doing. That's just a little side piece, but I find that very interesting. But what's more interesting is how absolutely hard Blasphemy goes. If you don't know war metal, then start with this. This is the most influential, most essential war metal album of all time, and it's one of the best. The riffs are heavy, it's low fidelity, it's grinding, it's sluggish. Well, sluggish as in your punches feel super heavy in the pit. There is a reason that Blasphemy's crowd is known to absolutely destroy venues, because despite having maximum 30-minute set, people go absolutely wild to this stuff because it's so stupidly heavy. But it's also fast. It is downright furious. Dude, pick slides? Pick slides everywhere. It sounds like Blitzkrieg in audio form. And the riffs have great variety as well, for being as influential as it is, and how people literally copied verbatim exactly what Blasphemy did. You couldn't really touch the original. Because, yeah, it's great. Plus, who could forget the classic, the war paint with sunglasses combo, like the GNC, like, real good military sunglasses. Like, it's a vibe. And up next, another thing that started a lot of stuff, Mayhem's Death Crush. Now, I'm going to say one more time, I did not make this chart, just in case you missed that in the beginning, because I know these are all very, very essential black metal listens right here, but They're here for a reason. Now, Mayhem's Death Crush, you might be surprised, is a phenomenal lifting album. It is terribly mixed, but it is so dope. Everything on here is so harsh, and yet, in its lo-fi glory, it sounds so well-rounded and complete. It's really a wholesome record that talks about killing people and necrosodomy. Yeah, all you have to do is look at that album cover. Nothing else is really like this. Really cool bridging point between when the guitar tones were getting figured out in black metal, but the riffing style wasn't quite there, so you just got the heavy, punky style riffs. Euronymous is just chugging back there. Really cool stuff. And the vocals with that amazing, perfect, reverb-soaked style. And the intermission on here from the dude from Tangerine Dream, which, I mean, rumors are Euronymous found this guy in like Norway or something, knocked on his house and just begged him for a track, and he just threw this track at him to get him to go away, which I find hilarious. Because if that's true, it's surprisingly a very, very well working track for this album. It's a very martial sounding, very like aggressive piece of electronic music, but everything else here is heavy. There's just enough thrash here to make it engaging and a little groovy. This is definitely top 2 Mayhem releases, but you already knew that. And, I might be controversial for this pick here, because there are some great albums we're talking about today, and you could argue for a few, but this one gets my Monkey Award of the day. This is the true Monkey album today. It's my favorite. And up next, we have another classic. These keep rolling. I can't wait till in a couple albums where I'm talking about more obscure stuff. Bathory, The Return. Bathory's The Return. Wow. Quorthon, I don't know what he was doing, but he figured something out that was really good, and it was that atmosphere could be there if your riffs are just objectively terrible. But something about these riffs being all power chords and chuggy and real slack-jawed stuff, something about it is so primitive. It's like if you describe post-rock to somebody, then they could end up writing this. I mean, they wouldn't, because Quorthon is amazing, or rest in peace, but just, it works so specifically. Some people straight up argue that like no other black metal exists. Like black metal as a genre is like so disorganized you couldn't like find anything similar between them, and that the only black metal that exists is this Bathory album. Which I understand it. It's primitive, it's atmospheric, which is a new thing for black metal, at least as far as I can tell. Tracks like Born for Burning, just as atmospheric as they get. This album here, I must say, is very vinyl friendly. Like, you really want the warmth from like a good set of speakers where the low fidelity can like breathe in. It's clearly very repetitive, and no one can argue that. And it's also not the best album here, and it's also not the best Bathory album, but I can't deny its classic status, and I can't deny that it's deserved, because it's just so singular in how it works. It's really a monumental piece of work here, and I think it's great. Unfortunately, this next album here, as influential as it is, I don't find as high quality. This is Sodom's first release, In the Sign of Evil. This is just a 19-minute EP. Might have been a demo at the time, but I don't really care because I don't love this thing. And that album cover is so insanely influential, like everyone knows that. Real, slack-jawed, mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging black thrash with some goofy atmosphere. But, 1984, it's highly influential. All I really need to say, Sodom has much better. Just one album later, they're going to have much better riffs. Just listen to Obsessed by Cruelty instead. This is okay. I didn't hate it. And up next, an absolute burner of an influential release here. Hellhammer's Satanic Rites. What some might say, and by some I mean Rate Your Music, the birth of black metal. That's huge, and look no further than Tom G. Warrior to do that. Yeah, if you guys don't know, Hellhammer turned into Celtic Frost, which their early work was very much black metal, thrash metal, sort of in a mix here. And these guys understand atmosphere. They've done that from the beginning, and they did that all the way through the end of their careers. Now, Tom G. Warrior, he's in Triptychon now, and he still does that. And even when he did Monotheist for Celtic Frost, he still was doing that. I think it's very, very rare to find any artist like Tom G. Warrior who can this consistently throughout their whole career put out banger after banger after banger and be consistent like that. Like, you got all these bands who fall off hugely. Like it's not even funny. Like, once you can tell when a band is old. Tom G. Warrior, Triptychon could be the freshest kids on the block, and they're still innovating, and it's still great. But, here we're talking about one of their first, any of these bands, one of the first ever black metal releases here, and certainly some work was needed after it. But I can't deny how influential it was, and some quality is shown. It's heavy hitting, it's evil, and it's punchy. It's interesting because texture-wise, it's like hardcore punk with a lead guitar line that it sounds kind of evil. Which, I mean, if that doesn't sound great to you, it's because it's not. You can tell what's being gone for here, but it's not the most consistently pleasing listen. There are certainly some classic songs here, but it's inconsistent. But it's kind of odd because you shouldn't describe black metal like this. But this is a fun release here. It's something I could see myself moshing to, having a good time with, but like, that's really not what you're going for in the genre. But they didn't create that until their next release. And, with this band, you can honestly say it was created. But I still think this is good. And up next, we have, one of the most unique things you'll find all day. Vaughn's Satanic Blood, a band from originally Hawaii and moved to California. When you hear caveman riffs and you put it in the context of black metal, there is one band that comes in mind. And it's the one riff per song machines, Vaughn. These guys seriously make the dumbest black metal of all time. And yet, it's still kind of good. It's even dumber than Sodom, but the guitar tone is way better. So that's a step in the right direction. It's evil, it's primal, it's pretty monkey. In terms of riffs, some songs are quite good, but it's just the one riff the song has for the whole time. And it's sort of like an interesting atmosphere, how it sort of pulls back from the evil and goes instead of like this Neanderthal, like in a cave, like the parable of the cave, or the men in the cave, it's the ancient Greek parable where it's like the men who see the stuff in the cave. But like, imagine if you're like, it's so impressionistic like that, it's like, imagine you're seeing warfare through shadows being cast on a wall, and you're just ignored because you're in chains, but you're looking at the shadows cast on the wall in your cave, and you watch clubs go over people's heads. Like, you would be horrified, but it's this weird impressionistic thing. Like, this is the audio form of that. And if that doesn't make you want to listen to it, how about my rating? Because I give it a really bizarre, insane listen here. You got to see it for yourself. And up next, we have Poison with Sons of Evil. Honestly, another contender for inventors of black metal. At least that's what the internet thinks, but to yours truly, I much more chalk it up to the fact that they were thrash metal that screamed a little bit and were so lo-fi that it was borderline unlistenable. Less unlistenable than Pure Effing Armageddon by Mayhem, but rough. I mean, I can't deny how influential this is, but it's certainly not where it could be. And honestly, what's funny is this is so early that it doesn't feel like a metal demo. It feels like a demo not meant to be released on physical format. It feels like it's a demo meant to be given to a studio so they would get signed and more would be done for them. But instead, we have this, and just miraculously, it ended up in the public, and now it's what we have. Which I find that very interesting because, now metal demos are everywhere. You listen to these death metal demos, and black metal bands will release their demos on vinyl or CDs or cassettes, mainly. I will say, though, some of the riffs are very captivating and interesting. You're very much getting a peek at what Euronymous and Thorns would end up coming up with in the 90s, even though this is like 7-8 years earlier, which is insane, honestly. Like, this thing sounds super weird, and it's also isolated from the rest of black metal happening because, media didn't travel as fast then, but it's interesting how it was happening at the time. I think this is okay. It's clearly a genre that was like so rough at the time, but it is worth a listen just for historical purposes. All right, and now we're out of the history section of this video, because who's trying to get educated when we're talking about caveman riffs? Now we're on Impaled Nazarene with, let me get this right here. I can't get this right, but here's how you would type it in your computer or phone, depending on where you're watching this from. Tol Kormt Norsh Norsh Norsh, as in Norz 3 times in a row. This is a 28-minute long album, and this is alternative war metal. That's a way to describe it, because it's not war metal in the traditional sense. It's a black metal band for sure. It's better produced than most war metal up until the 2000s, and instead of like death metal influence, you get a healthy scoop of grindcore, and grindcore of the highly offensive variety. Like, this thing feels like an early progenitor for Reek of the Unzen gas fumes. It is that aggressive and furious. It feels sickeningly hateful. You could assume the worst when listening to this, but you could also assume the best just from seeing that it's black metal from Finland. I am a proud advocate for Finnish black metal. Everyone online who says Poland makes the best black metal, you can shove it. Finland, you have aggressive, riffy black metal with deep, guttural death metal vocals traded off with normal black metal vocals. And if that sounds like grindcore to you, that's where the influence is. Wild vocals, Finnish riffing style, hell yes. Absolutely filthy. Like, there is a track here which has pretty sexual sound samples and animal squeal sound samples. And I mean, I'm just not putting 2 and 2 together for YouTube purposes, but like, you guys can put together exactly what's implied there. And as like dirty as the mixes here, you know, it's a little cleaner than like Mortician from like death metal, where they have like all these like Texas Chainsaw Massacre samples, but here it's just like it's mixed in this way that's too perfect. So it really sounds like what you think it sounds like. And funnily enough, it's still black metal. There are occasional really haunting synth passages that just chill you to the bone. I firmly believe this is one of the last albums in black metal that has actual shock value, like, especially in terms of lyrical content. Like, they're on the level of like Devourment in terms of like disgusting song lyrical topics, and it just sounded too gross. Like, I was working out to this and I was like a little disturbed. But yeah, like, Impaled Nazarene is, dare I say, based. But yeah, it's great. And finally for today, you know, the Duke of Italy has to mention someone from Italy. This is Mortuary Drape with Into the Drape, 19-minute long classic Italian black metal EP. And Italy does not have a lot of good black metal. They have a few great black metal bands, and one of them is Mortuary Drape. Ooh, it's creepy, very creepy. It's certainly early black metal, so you have a lot of influences here. A little bit of heavy metal, maybe dark ambient, just because it's the vibes are genuinely creepy. You definitely have parts that are more doom metal laden, parts that are more speed metal. There are some synths here, but they're not like the ambient style synths. They're more like keyboard. It's not perfect, but just from a listener's perspective, it's very alluring. Honestly, great guitar melodies that are very varied for the time, and excellent bass playing too. You can really pick out the bass playing, and that's a part that's really, really great. It's great to work out to, even though it's just 19 minutes long, but this thing is great. And isn't it nice to round out a video with another great album? But those are the Caveman riffs for the day. But Duke, I want more Caveman riffs that are of the death metal variety or the war metal variety. Well, it's coming. You know, you'll have great stuff to work out to next week. You know, how many times are you going to work out this week? You got 10 albums here. Just take it easy. Or in 3 weeks when I do another one of these. But that is about it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Likes, please. Comments, questions, and concerns down below. My social media, also down below. That's in the description. And my Discord page is there as well. Come on down. Show us how you know music better than us by posting your favorite albums in the respective text channel. And I'd appreciate a subscribe too. And that's about it. Hope you are having a good day out there. Have a good one. Bye.